Well, Rob, you were out in the States for the Club World Cup when obviously City went out against Al Hilal. What do you make of the rebuild? There seems to be just this sort of confidence in Pep Guardiola, justifiably, obviously, given his record that, okay, he's been backed in the market. Back they come next season. It's all normal order will be restored. Last year was just a blip. I mean, where do you sort of see them at the moment in their evolution?
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to tell. I mean, I was impressed with City's business before the Club World Cup, the transfer business. They signed Aït-Nouri from Wolves, Reinders from Milan. They got Ryan Cherki from Lyon. They all seemed like really sensible signings for, I thought, relatively low fees. I mean, the Aït-Nouri one, probably one of the best left wing backs in the Premier League for the best part of 18 months, and to get him for around about sort of £30 million seemed like particularly good business. The Club World Cup was slightly strange in that from the minute that City got there, they were talking about it as this is the start of the new season. Pep made a very clear distinction between last season's squad and this season's squad by leaving behind players like Jack Grealish, making sure all the new signings were in. They kind of eased their way into the tournament a little bit in the States, and then they have that game against Juventus where they have to win to top the group, and they were absolutely terrific. Rodrygo was back in midfield. They scored goals. They looked like their old selves, and all of a sudden the narrative around it is City are back. They're going to do this, this, and this in the Premier League next season. Watch out, kind of thing. And then they play Al Hilal, and the expectation was that they were just going to win. And I was guilty of that myself because I was, booking a hotel to stay in Orlando for their quarterfinal against Fluminense, and ended up watching Al Hilal against Fluminense at Camping World Stadium in Orlando before I could go home. The Al Hilal one, I think, was a worry for Pep because Al Hilal exposed a lot of the flaws that we saw last season. City didn't deal well with transitions at all. It was an odd game in that City completely dominated the first half, and then after the half time, we just went to pieces. Rodri he couldn't start the game. He came on in the second half and had to go off again. Obviously, losing him is massive, and the problem for Pep now is that we're expecting him to be out for a little bit longer as well, and might not be available for the start of the Premier League season. So it's really difficult to tell where City are. I think they'll obviously be better than last season, because last season a lot of the problems that they had were down to injuries, and I think the squad this season is more balanced, and they've addressed the lack of legs in midfield with Reinders, hopefully, although you can never tell when players come from different countries and different leagues. So I think City are relatively confident and comfortable with the group that they've got. I just think it's really, really difficult to tell where they're at in terms of, are they capable of getting close to the likes of Liverpool and Arsenal in challenging for the league?
I know trying to second guess Pep Guardiola from a tactical point of view is a fool's errand, really. But I mean, do you think he used the Club World Cup to some extent to sort of reshape the team in the way that we're now going to see them play like that in the Premier League, or is it likely to be different, do you think?
I think so. I mean, I think last season he was kind of limping towards the end of the season. He was just trying to do whatever he possibly could to get City over the line in terms of qualifying for the Champions League. And we saw the end of last season, he ended up with this kind of box midfield, which we haven't really seen over the course of his sort of 8 years. And he was doing it because he just felt that the team were completely unstable. And the one thing that he always wants is stability and control. And it just went out the window last year. So we had this kind of box midfield, which I didn't think that he particularly liked, but he kind of realised that having more players in there helped them be a bit more stable and just kind of win games. I think perhaps we'll see a little bit of a return to his old kind of tactical setup, in that hopefully he'll have Rodri sitting deep. He'll have Reinders as the kind of number 8 box-to-box energy guy in midfield, and then one of maybe Bernardo Silva or Phil Foden in that kind of Kevin De Bruyne role. Obviously, Erling Haaland is going to be a centre-forward come what may. And then you've got two wide players. You've got Doku, you've got Cherki who can do that job. There's obviously a little bit of transfer chatter around Savinho. Pep loves Savinho and has done since he arrived. City are sort of telling us that they don't want to lose him, but we've seen time and time again that City players have always got a price, and particularly if they go to Pep and say, I want to explore a new challenge, usually they're allowed to go. Look at the likes of Ferran Torres, who went to Barcelona. Alvarez, who went to Atletico Madrid. So, maybe there's maybe one change of personnel in those forward areas, but I would expect them to. I would expect City to look a lot more like, the treble City than the City from last season. Whether that actually plays out when the season starts, we'll just have to wait and see. But I think that's the expectation.
I mean, Savinho, is that a bit of a strange one, given that he's still very young, he's not been there very long. You sort of feel as though he's the kind of player who might kick on with another year or two under his belt at City. You sort of surprised that they seem to be open to potentially him going?
A little bit, but I mean, I think that's just Pep's style of management. I mean, just from a club point of view, you can imagine Hugo Viana, the director of football, sort of saying, well, absolutely not. He's not going anywhere. He's 21 years old. He's had 1 year in the Premier League. He's probably one of the only players last year who came out of the season with any kind of credit. He played regularly. I think he played 40-odd games in all competitions. So it's not like he was kind of restricted in terms of starts and just wasn't playing and played 20-odd games. He was a regular. I just think when Pep gets things in his head, and we saw with Ferran Torres and Julian Alvarez, that the minute that a player comes and says, oh, no, I fancy speaking to someone else, that immediately Pep kind of goes, well, that's fine. If we get the money, then you go in. And we've seen it time and time again. And I think City would probably, even with a couple of weeks left before the deadline, I think City would probably back themselves to replace him. I think that the message from City that we've had is this is all now down to Savinho. That if he sits down and says to Spurs, thanks but no thanks, then he'll stay. But if he pushes in any way to make that move happen, he will be allowed to go. And the only thing I can think of from his perspective is that perhaps he wants to be the main man. He's not the main man at City. He played a lot of games last year, but he was kind of start two on the bench for one, start two, one start, one on the bench. At Spurs, if Spurs are going to pay 50-odd million quid for him, you would expect that he's going to play every single week. So I kind of get that attraction from his point of view. But you're right. I mean, it is an odd one to me. But again, I wouldn't put anything past City when these deals kind of come up, because usually we see that if a player wants to leave, Pep just says, fine, off you go.
And if it is Savinho out, Rodrygo in? I mean,
it's possible. Again, it's an odd one, because when we spoke to City when I was away at the Club World Cup, obviously there was loads of rumours about Rodrygo and Real Madrid, because Real Madrid were out there at the same time. And the message from City was that he was being offered to an awful lot of clubs all over the world, particularly in the Premier League. But City kind of said, yeah, great player, but no, we haven't really got that much interest. But at that point, they would have expected to keep Savinho. I think if they were to get 50 million for Savinho, they would need one other body, because you would have Doku, Cherki, Foden, Bernardo Silva. The likelihood is that McAtee is going to go to Forest. It wouldn't surprise me if they turned around and went for another look at Rodrygo. I think the one issue that City might face with that is that the finances involved. I mean, City can probably do whatever they want in terms of PSR, but the wages or the fee that Real Madrid would likely demand might be a little bit off-putting to them. But you never know. I remember a couple of years ago that City said that they were completely done and they weren't going to sign anyone else. And then 24 hours later, Manuel Akanji walked through the door. So you can never say never with City.
And you can never say never with Pep Guardiola when he talks about his future and his contract situation, because he's one of the managers fall into two categories for me on this, don't they? They kind of never talk about it, or they're always sort of flirting a little bit with the idea that they might go. Pochettino's classic for this. He's always sort of, oh, maybe I might do this one day, or maybe I might do that, or whatever. I mean, and it does get us all talking. I mean, I'm going to ask you the question that I feel like we asked a lot last season, but here we go again. Obviously Guardiola's contracted to City until 2027. Do you think there's any chance he might go this year? He might go at the end of the season. Obviously the 115 charges, farcical situation that we're going into another season without that being resolved, but you assume that decision will come at some point this season, in which case could that have an impact? Of course we don't know, but do you think Guardiola will see those 2 years out and go, or do you think he might go before? $1 million question for you.
It wouldn't surprise me. it wouldn't surprise me if this was his last year. I mean, obviously City will tell you that he's got 2 years left. They fully intend for him to see those 2 years out, and they'll revisit it again in 2027. There are a couple of things with this. The last time they won the league in 2024, he looked shattered, and he even said to us a couple of times that he was feeling drained. He saw Jurgen Klopp go, having said the same thing, that he was feeling tired and he was running out of energy. Pep at the end of that season, when they won the 4th in a row, looked like he was tired and began speaking like he was. There was a kind of expectation from City's end that maybe he would see this summer through. They always said that this summer wasn't a great summer to hand over between managers because of the Club World Cup, that they wanted someone to kind of have this transition summer and then, stay next season. The deal that Pep signed was longer than we all expected. We weren't expecting him to sign a deal till 2027. It wouldn't surprise me if this was his last season because he's got a contract for the next 2 years. There aren't going to be any questions now in October, November, December about, are you going to stay? Are you going to sign a new deal? And we were led to believe the last couple of times this has happened, he got really fed up of all these questions about his future because he felt like it overshadowed the whole campaign, which is why usually he tended to sign a new contract in the November international break just to put the whole thing to bed, because he knew that if the issue got to January, it would become bigger and bigger and bigger. The players would begin to be asked about it. It would cause uncertainty. Transfer targets would ask, is he staying? Is he going? And he just didn't want that. Now, because he's got a contract of 2027, no one's going to ask that this year. And people are just going to assume that he's going to see this contract through it. Pep being Pep, it wouldn't surprise me if they challenge for the title again. Maybe they get over the line and win it again. They do well in the Champions League. He wins it again. And that he walks away, because he's made no secret of the fact that he's getting towards the end of his time at City. And now it's really just about how that handover works. And even City, sort of 10 months ago, were saying that the handover in 2026 in a World Cup year would be an awful lot easier than it would have been in 2025 when there was a Club World Cup to get through. So it certainly wouldn't surprise me. But again, just like City, I won't put anything past Pep. It's possible that he gets to 2027 and he decides, I've got a couple more years left in me. I'm feeling energized again. I want to keep going. It's possible that he goes at the end of this season. I think his future, just, the entire topic, I just think the whole thing is fluid and is up in the air.
And just finally on City, I said that was the $1 million question. This is the $2 million question. Yeah. Do you think, from what you've seen, do you think they will be back? Do you think they will be back challenging? Or is this more likely to be a year where they're sort of building towards maybe 26, 27 being when they really go for the league again?
I think that they can get back challenging straight away. I just think that if Liverpool signings hit the ground running and they get the players that they think they might be able to get, obviously thinking about Isak, that does feel like there's a little bit of a gap there that City would need to bridge. I think City, given what happened last year, I think their aim for the first half of the season will just be to stay in the races as best they can. Maybe they're third around December, January time, and they're maybe, within 10 points of whoever's top, whether it's Liverpool or Arsenal. I think if that was the case, they would back themselves, if everyone's fit, to go on one of those runs again in January, February, March, and get really, really close. I think it's going to be tough for them. I think it's going to be tough to get past Liverpool. But again, it's that squad is still full of players who know how to get over the line. Ederson, Diaz, Haaland, Foden, Bernardo Silva. It's full of all that experience, and I think that counts for quite a lot when you're trying to kind of bounce back from a difficult season. So I wouldn't have them down as my title winners right now, but again, you never know. City have got the quality, the squad depth, the experience to get it done. So if anyone can challenge Liverpool, it's probably City.